again.
Yeah. I was saying they have to put in a new piece in the boiler, and it takes a few weeks till they get it. So trying to find someone else. They couldn't wait. The boiler couldn't wait a few weeks till it gets warm. Okay. So all this is not what we prepared for. Normally Rabbi Zeira comes and teaches, and normally Mrs. Nemini teaches. But we don't want to waste time, so I'm going to teach something that's related to Purim. And being that today is Rosh Chodesh, which means there's much more in the davening, we say Hallel, we say Musaf. So instead of the normal half hour, we'll finish a little bit earlier, maybe 10 to, and you'll have a chance to do the davening. Number one, to do more, or to just do it a little bit slower and concentrate, and have your coffee and all the goodies. So I'm going to go over a Sikha on one of the most shocking Gemaras that exists. And please don't tell me that someone taught it already, then I'm in trouble. So if you know that someone taught it, don't say anything.
Don't say, keep it quiet.
I tell my kids, if I tell you a story and you know it, just don't say anything. On Purim, there are different customs, as we know. And this is the way we observe Purim. We send Shalach Manas packages. We have to hear the Megillah. We add certain parts in the davening, Al Hanisim. And we have to give tzedakah to the poor. And we have to eat a special meal in honor of Purim. These are the mitzvahs of Purim. And on Purim, it's supposed to, the biggest mitzvah of all is the simcha, to be happy. And the way he describes the simcha on Purim is very different than any other holiday that there is. It says one should drink on Purim, Adala Yada, they should drink, I'm not talking about water, I'm talking about something that looks like water, but it's wine or whiskey, and to drink it to the point that they won't know the difference between Baruch Mordechai and Ar Haman. Baruch Mordechai, there's a song that we sing on Purim. It's in the Siddur, and in the shul, after we read the Megillah, everyone says it together. In some shuls, they might sing it together, but it definitely is a song that in many communities, they compose different tunes to it. It talks about the miracle, and we conclude that blessed be Mordechai and all the tzaddikim, and cursed be Haman and all the wicked, evil people that exist out there, all the Hamans. So you should be so drunk that you don't know the difference between blessed be Mordechai and cursed be Haman. It's shocking. First of all, it's shocking. How could the Torah tell you to be so drunk that you don't know whether you're coming or going? I mean, you can be happy, drink a little bit to be a little bit uplifted, inspired, but not, God forbid, to drink that you don't know who to bless and who to curse. You don't know the difference. It doesn't make any sense. Then you look at the story in Gemara that related to this. The shock is doubled and tripled and 10 times more. Let's look at the story. So you're looking here at this sheet that I gave out is the Art Scroll translation in English, and you see there's an arrow there. That's the beginning of the story. Page 7B1. Oh, you should have had two sheets. You only have one sheet? Oh, no. Well, you see, I don't know the difference. I drank a little bit too much water this morning.
I put wine and everything.
Well, does anyone have two sheets? Anybody? It must have been given out with all the sheets. No, I just wonder if I have it on the sheet. I'll make copies in a second. But okay, I'll have to do it by heart. What can I do?
Maybe you can send a picture on the group. Like, do you want me to take a pic and then I can?
I don't have it myself. Does anyone have a sheet that on top of the sheet that says 7B2? One of you must have it. Nobody?
Who is the winner? Who is the winner?
I'll go down 1 second to make more copies.
You are the winner.
Okay, you won. You get a cup of my.
What do you win?
Hey!
It's so long. I did it last night. And half of no. I need a whole top off.
Wait, then you can like
Not by choice.
I know because I want a 12 to 14 screen or
So we're on page 71, where it says like this, where the arrow is. Omar Rabba. Rabba said, Chayev inish l'psumah v'puria. One is obligated to become intoxicated with wine on Purim, ad yoda, until one does not know the difference between Arur Haman and Baruch Mordechai. Cursed is Haman and blessed is Mordechai. That's the halacha. Then the Gemara brings a story to support this. Rabba and Reb Zeira, there were two great sages. One is Rabba and one is Reb Zeira. Avdu Sudas Purim Bahadi Adadi. They were having the Purim feast together. And they both became, they drank and they became intoxicated. Come Rabba got up. He slaughtered Reb Zeira. He slaughtered Reb Zeira, which means he killed him. The next day, Bori Rachme, he prayed for mercy and he brought him back to life. Interesting story. L'shana, next year comes Purim again. So Rabba says to Reb Zeira, come, let's have the Purim meal together. So we answered him, no, not every year does a miracle happen. I'm not taking any chances. So the Rebbe says this story is filled with shocking things that really needs to be understood. And let me go over, generally speaking, what are the questions? Question number one. We're talking about one of the sages. By the way, Rabba wasn't only one of the sages. Rabba was the greatest sage of his generation. Some of you know that the Rambam Maimonides shows and he lists the 40 generations of who were the greatest authorities of Torah from Moshe until the end of the Gemara. Anyone who wants to see this, you can see it in the Rambam. I have these sheets, 40 generations, and mentions by name who was the greatest authority in the first, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth. One of those generations is Rabba, this Rabba. So not only was he one of the sages of the Gemara, he was one of the greatest sages that ever lived. He was the greatest sage in his generation. He was the leader, the Nasi, the highest. So what happens when he gets drunk? He kills somebody? Does that make any sense whatsoever? But that's what it says in Gemara. How can that be? That's question number one. So some of the Mefarshim, some of the commentators say, it didn't really kill him. He had him drink a lot of wine. And when he drank so much, he got sick and he almost died. So the Rebbe says so. And that does make sense. That's what a tzaddik of this nature does. He brings somebody to a point where his life is in danger. Then there's another opinion that says, he didn't really kill him. He just took a knife and he put it near his throat to make believe that he's shechting him. And Reb Zeira got so scared that he fainted. That's what happened. So Rebbe said, it still doesn't make any sense. We're not talking about two kids. We're talking about the greatest sages of Israel. Could you imagine the Rebbe doing that to somebody? It just doesn't make any sense. Another question is, the Gemara says that after that, the next day when he saw that he killed this person, he brought him back to life through his prayers. According to this opinion, he never died in the first place. We didn't have to bring him back to life. It was just make-believe, so to speak. Anyway, there's another opinion that says, the Gemara writes that if a person was born when the constellation is the red one, some say that's Mars, so therefore it means that they have some sort of a nature to spill blood. That person should become a sheikhet or a mahel, which means spilling blood in a permissible way, not, God forbid, in a bad way, to allow that nature to express itself. Rabba once said that he was born in that time when that constellation was sort of was present. So the Rebbe said still doesn't explain it, because we know that even if a person has a nature, no matter how strong the nature is, God gave us free choice to overcome it. A nature only means that there's a natural disposition for this to be a certain way. I'm inclined to be a certain way. But of course, I have to overcome that nature. So it still doesn't explain how is it possible that a sage like Rabba should do something like this. Then the Rebbe says another question is, the Gemara doesn't even talk about it. Did he do tshuva? And the Gemara doesn't even discuss what were the consequences of something like this. To make the question even stronger, look what it says. Next year, he said to him, come, let's eat together. Could you imagine? Someone kills somebody, and then he says, come, let's do it again. If he made a mistake, and he did something so terrible the first time, why would he even want to go there again? And the answer that he gave him, by the way, he didn't say, I don't want to go because he's afraid that he's going to kill him. And he wasn't afraid of that. He was afraid that he won't be able to bring him back to life. What kind of Purim is that? What kind of experience is that? He kills him and he doesn't care about it. He never did tshuva for it. How does it make sense? One of the explanations is that the story never happened literally. It's a metaphor. Like a lot of stories in Gemara, we call this medrash, which means it's a metaphor to bring out a certain point. So this also is not that it really happened, but it's a metaphor for something else that happened. And really the story has a deep meaning according to Kabbalah, according to some sort of mystical explanation. And the Rebbe said, no, that doesn't go either. Why not? Because the Gemara is saying that from this story we learn a halacha, a practical halacha, how we have to conduct ourselves, that people should drink on Purim. If it's something which is metaphoric, you can't learn a halacha from it. Not only that, there's also another opinion, by the way, that opinion says the opposite. From this story, we learn the halacha that you don't drink on Purim. Look what happened from drinking. So therefore, we shouldn't drink on Purim. Whichever halacha you choose, but if you can learn a halacha from a story, it must mean that this story happened literally. It's not a metaphor. Otherwise, you can't derive a halacha from something metaphoric. So how can we explain this story? So we must say, according to this, that the story happened literally. He actually took his life away. He died. And he brought him, by the way, the Rebbe doesn't say this, but I'm adding, if he brought him back to life the next day, clearly he was a very big tzaddik. Normally, no one has that power to bring a person who died back to life. Only great tzaddikim could do that. So he must have been a big tzaddik, and even the fact that he killed him the night before didn't take away anything from his righteousness, and he had the power to bring him back to life. So it's so contradictory what was going on. But we must say, according to this, that it happened literally. He actually took his life away. And at the same time, there was nothing wrong with what he did. Not even one iota wrong. And on the contrary, we learn from it. We're inspired by it. How could that be? How could the two things, how could reconcile both things? It's not a metaphor. It's actually reality. It actually happened. So in order to explain this, in fact, it was so good that he wanted to do it next year again. the Rebbe says we need to bring in another story that's found in the Chumash, and that is the story with the two sons of Aaron. It says that on the day that they constructed the Mishkan, the Mishkan in the desert, and that was Rosh Chodesh Nisan, Hashem's presence for the first time came down to this world, and there was the greatest revelation of godliness, and then there was a tragedy. The two sons of Aaron died. Why did they die? In the Chumash it says they brought a fire that was not meant to be brought. They weren't supposed to do it, and therefore they were sort of punished. So all the commentators raised this question, that it says in the Chumash that Moshe Rabbeinu said to Aaron to comfort him, he said to him that God told him in advance that on the day that this happens, something's going to happen to the holiest people that are in that generation. And Moshe said, he thought it was him and Aaron. And now he sees that the two sons of Aaron are even holier than Moshe. So if you're talking about such tzaddikim, that their greatness and their righteousness and their holiness is parallel to Moshe and Aaron, how could it make sense that in such a holy day and such a holy place, they'll go and violate Hashem's will and bring a fire that they weren't supposed to bring? So the way it's explained by one of the very, we would say, central commentators on the Torah, and this is the way it's explained in Kabbalah and in Chassidus, is the commentary of Orach Chaim. Orach Chaim is a commentary on Chumash. It's found in most of the Chumashim that have other commentaries in it, besides Rashi. And it's interesting, by the way, because the Orach Chaim, his commentary is very deep, and it's based a lot on Kabbalah. And the story behind it is that he had no sons, only daughters. And every Friday night, he learned the Parsha with them. And he explained the Parsha. And whatever he taught them Friday night in the Parsha, that's what he put down in his commentary. That's what his daughters were studying with him. So he says the following, that they were in the Mishkan. Hashem Shechina came down. And what does it mean of fire? It means they were overcome with a fire of love for Hashem. They felt the love for Hashem. They felt the sweetness. They felt the pleasure to such an extent that their souls expired. And that's what it means that they died because they brought a fire that they weren't supposed to bring. And when the Gemara says something else, the Gemara says they died because they drank wine. And you're not allowed to drink wine before you go into the Beis HaMikdash. So the Orach Chaim says wine represents Torah. But water also represents Torah. What is the difference? Water represents the revealed part of Torah. Wine represents the hidden part of Torah. Because what is wine? Wine is a product of something that's hidden. You have grapes. You can't make Kiddush on grapes. Grapes is a fruit. But in the grape, there's something there that if you process it the right way, something very precious comes out, which is wine. So wine is something which is hidden. And that's why when you drink wine, it also brings out something in the world which is hidden, something in the person that is hidden. In fact, there's a famous saying, when wine goes in, the secrets come out. The simple meaning is when wine goes in, your tongue becomes loose and the secrets come out. The deeper meaning is that when a person drinks wine, it opens up hidden chambers of the soul, and it opens up hidden chambers of spiritual realm, that a person is enabled and empowered to understand and perceive things about Hashem that normally they would not be able to perceive. And that happens, and that's what the power of wine is. In fact, it's interesting that the Hebrew word wine, the way it's spelled, the numerical value is 70, yayin. And the Hebrew word in Hebrew for secrets is sod. Secret means sod, which is also 70. Because wine reveals the hidden secrets, which means that as a result of the drinking wine, they were exposed to the hidden secrets of Hashem. And because they were exposed to something so high and so deep, they were overwhelmed with such love that they lost their life. Their soul literally separated from their body and they were carried away to Shemayim. After this, the Torah says, from now on, don't drink wine before you go into the Beis HaMikdash. Which means that if you're going to drink wine, this might happen to you. But the question is, did they drink wine literally, or wine is a metaphor? So the Rebbe explains they drank wine literally. They actually drank wine. But wine, drinking wine physically has a power to open up these hidden chambers and allow a person to see deeper things and perceive deeper things about Hashem. In other words, we're living in a world today where there's a lot of research about food actually have an effect on the person, you would say, on the personality of a person. Whether the person becomes more hyper, whether the person is more calm, can depend a lot on the food that you eat. Food has a certain power to it, how it affects us. The drink of wine has the power in it that it opens up the hidden chamber in a person, Hashem. So the point we're trying to bring out from this story is that there's two things that happened there. One is that they were on a spiritual journey, which was so huge, so deep, that they were overwhelmed and they lost their lives. The other is that they did drink physical wine. And in fact, the spiritual journey was a result of the physical wine that they drank. So when you see it says something in the Torah about something that happened and describes it physically, not always is it a metaphor. What happened physically actually happened in actuality, but the depth behind it is something deeper than what you see with the eye. I mean, you can think of a lot of examples. If someone, for example, gives a gift, a husband gives a gift to his wife. The gift could be jewelry, the gift could be candy, the gift could be nice flowers. What you see is something physical, but what's really happening is something deeper than physical, an expression of emotion, an expression of feeling. And it's being expressed through the physical. So someone who has no idea of what husband and wife is all about, a little child will look at it and all he sees is flowers. He sees a physical box of candies. He sees a physical piece of jewelry. He doesn't understand. He's too young to understand that there's something deeper behind it. This is an expression of feeling. And the expression of feeling is being expressed through this physical thing. I think of another example. If you walk into someone's house and you see a trophy there, and you say, what is this? And you start reading it. And this year, this person won world championship in chess. World championship. So imagine if a 4-year-old says to you, what is this? You say, oh, I won a game. So they gave me this as a present. Oh, what are they thinking? The present is they got something shiny. Could you explain to a 4-year-old what it means, world championship of something? It's too abstract. He doesn't know what you're talking about. So it's a physical object, but it carries in it something much deeper than that. So wine is a physical drink of wine. And that's why actually on Shabbos we drink wine, Yom Tov we drink wine, different occasions that have to do with holiness. In the Beis Hamikdash, they poured wine on the Mizbeach. Wine is a physical drink, but it has in it a certain spiritual power to open up hidden chambers in a person. So to make a long story short, because it's a very beautiful sikh with a lot of details, the Rebbe said that's what happened here. Rabba and Reb Zeira, when they sat down to drink, they didn't sit down to drink wine and get drunk. They drank the wine and it opened them up to see things in the spiritual realm that they normally don't experience. The two people, one was higher than the other. In fact, it's interesting. The Aramaic word Rabba means big. The Aramaic word Zeira, which is the other rabbi, means small. So this rabbi was greater than the other one. And he chose to go into a spiritual journey which he could handle. But the younger rabbi was overwhelmed by it, and and his soul departed, just like Nadav and Avihu. So it wasn't that he killed him, God forbid. It wasn't that he murdered him. It was that he took him into a spiritual journey about Hashem that he was able to handle, but the younger rabbi couldn't handle it. And as a result of that, he died. And being that, it happened because he caused it, so the next day he brought him back to life. But the journey was a journey that was amazing. So next year when he said to him, you want to come again to have a meal? So on one hand, he wanted it because he experienced something in godliness which he'll never experience on his own. On the other hand, he was afraid that what happens if his soul doesn't decide to come back again. Then he didn't want to do that. So basically, we see a story here that on the surface seems to be totally shocking and doesn't make any sense, totally not understood. But yet, the deeper meaning to the story puts it into a whole different perspective. There was nothing that he did wrong, nothing that you need to do tshuva for. And both things happen. What it says physically happened physically, and what it explains what happens spiritually, and the two things actually go together.
Rabbi Majeski,
Yeah.
I have two questions. One is, I was told recently that, like on Purim, for instance, if a woman is to get drunk, she should only do that with both her father and her husband present. But there's like something about the number of glasses of wine that a woman can drink for it to be like kosher for her to do so. Or maybe kosher is not the word.
I think it should be changed to a woman shouldn't get drunk. And men shouldn't get drunk either to wine, but a woman should surely not get drunk. And it's not considered, it's near for a woman to get drunk. And I'll leave it up to the ladies to explain. Mrs. Namdar, Mrs. Cohen, torture them a little bit. Ask them what's the explanation. Ask them how
What
come.
about like the not being able to differentiate between night and day? Like that implies such a level of inebriation. Like somebody's getting that drunk, right?
No, of course, for men, obviously, if a person can handle it, a man, he shouldn't drink either. And I don't know if you're familiar with this, but the Rabba, many years ago, came out and said that in general, I mean, maybe Purim would be an exception, but in general, even though this used to be a normal Hasidic activity to have a farbrengen and say l'chaim, the Rebbe said that the men should not say more than 4 times l'chaim on little cups. And he gave very, very strong warnings that anyone who does that should know that he's sort of cutting himself off from me. I mean, it was a very, very strong tznicha. Because when it does something positive, it's a good thing. And today, we're not on that level. And by doing these kind of things, like these two people, when they drank, they went to a spiritual journey or something else. But for someone who's not going to be elevated through this, then on the contrary, it could be the opposite, it could be very damaging. So that's one part of the Sikha. I guess with my class of level 2, when we learn the Chassidus of Purim, I'll go into more details of the Sikha. Okay, and Mrs. Cohen's going to take over now.